Ever had a session where the players walk into town and immediately start stabbing random peasants or shopkeepers? You, my friend, have a murder hobo problem. You could fix this by punishing their bad behavior. Send in the Amen, a ragtag band of level 20 do-gooders to punish your naughty PCs. Or you could do something much more sneaky. You make your party care about people. You've all heard the stories of players adopting random goblins, naming them Gary and then giving them a backstory they've never given their own characters. Well, let's engineer that. Welcome to Mystic Arts, where we take game-breaking mechanics and force them to serve the narrative. My name is Daði, I'm a professional writer and director, and I've been DMing for 10 years. When players don't have anything to be attached to, they stop acting like real people. Their choices don't need to make sense because they've distanced themselves from the world. That's how you get to degenerate play. Degenerate play is a term that describes when a game collapses into nonsense, even if the players aren't necessarily trying to ruin it. It happens in video games when people find broken strategies and then play the game in a way that isn't intended. And it absolutely happens in D&D. The most famous, real-life example of degenerative play? People in 3rd edition building characters that could literally throw the moon. Or using a feature to end any condition affecting themselves, like dying or the sun. Then there is the most common example, murderhoboing. That's degenerative play too. If the game doesn't feel real, the players don't engage with it like real people. They act like cartoon bandits in a video game cutscene. The default advice for this situation is to punish bad behavior. And yeah, you should do that. If the party slaughters a village, the king should set a bounty on their heads, and if they burn a temple, the paladins will come. But that's the stick. You and I are going to make a carrot. You don't need to punish bad behavior if you're rewarding good behavior. And that means giving them something, or someone, to care about. Sidekicks first appeared in the Dragon of Icespire Peak, originally designed to help solo players run through that adventure. But they eventually got a full rework in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. The basic idea is that you take a CR 1/4 creature or lower and give it sidekick classes, so they can level up alongside the party. There's 3 classes. First, the warrior, a fighter-like character who can either be a defender or an attacker. Then there is the expert, which is kind of like a rogue or other skill-based support character that can use the help action as a bonus action. And third, the spellcaster, which stands in for 8 of the 12 core classes. Perfect. And kind of most importantly, these sidekicks get 3 death saves, just like player characters, which is huge. That means they get to stick around. I mean, I sometimes decide a normal NPC ally can get a single death save just to sort of make them have a little more staying power. But otherwise, by the rules, Statblocks don't get death saves. They get nothing. Sidekicks are great fun because they add a certain element and dimension to fights. They can be at risk or they can be saved. They can even save the heroes. And when the sidekick is someone controlled by the PCs, it doesn't feel like a gimmick or anything. It feels like the player's reward is working in their favor. They had to earn the sidekick, and now the sidekick's helping them back. Since sidekicks start as CR 1/4 creatures and then get class levels on top, it means they end up with loads of hit points early on. And I used to think that was a problem, but I don't anymore. If the sidekicks are too low HP, you run the risk of the players feeling like they're babysitting these guys. And it's not that broken either. Take a look at their level progression. Sidekicks don't get extra attack for a while, and their spellcasting is trash until higher levels. And that's fine, because a good sidekick is fun, helpful, and never outshines the players. Their offensive abilities are low, so they don't outshine the PCs, and their defensive abilities are high, so the PCs don't have to worry about them too much. I think this strikes an ideal balance mechanically. Then, as the DM, you give the sidekicks a crucial trait. They're subservient. They defer to the PCs. What flavor of subservience is up to you. They can be loyal, scared, infatuated, indebted, honor-bound, whatever. But they should defer to the heroes. You don't want the sidekick to be the star of the show. Because remember, a good sidekick is not a DMPC. That stands for Dungeon Master Player Character. If you're not familiar with the concept, it's basically when a DM creates their own player character, presents them to the party as an NPC, but ends up making them the star of the game. Do not do that. The players are the heroes. So let them be the heroes. Sidekicks are basically an alternative reward for players to control. If you're running them right, they shouldn't feel much different from a magic item. Sidekicks shouldn't make decisions. They offer advice, they have their own opinions, but the heroes call the shots. In my games, I'll sometimes run 2 or more sidekicks at once so they can argue with each other. offer contrary advice, and then it's up to the party to decide what to do. It can be a good way to present choices when the party is stuck, without robbing them of the ability to decide for themselves because the DM just told us to do something. Or this can also be a good way to show subservience or deference to the PCs, clearly indicating to them that the sidekick won't make this decision for them. Heroes have to make their own decisions. At my day job, I'm working on a video game, and in the very early days of that process, I had the pleasure of meeting loads of creatives from around the world. Magnus, my friend and fellow writer on the game, was lucky enough to take a meeting with Mike Laidlaw, the creative director for Dragon Age. And Mike gave Magnus a brilliant bit of advice that I've since applied to just about any sidekick. We were struggling to know how to make our own video game companion as lovable as possible, and Mike said that the one thing they found on Dragon Age Origins was that the character Alistair was so popular because he was in awe of the player character. So be unafraid to have sidekicks fawn over the heroes. The players want their ego stroked. That's why they always feel so murdery when shopkeepers don't respect my authority. If you want your sidekick to stick, you need 3 things. 1, a memorable voice. Even just one defining quirk. Doesn't have to be an accent. Maybe they talk too fast. Maybe they always forget names.
Ed. Well, I'm Larry, so whatever.
2, either art or a mini. Players fall in love with things they can see. So you can go online and look for art, or make one on Hero Forge just to show off. And number 3, usefulness. A sidekick that doesn't help at all may end up being left behind. Nobody wants their sidekick to be a burden. People hate escort quests. So let's put it together. This is Brungi. I ran him for AB in Octavia, our solo game. I started with the Goblin stat block and I made him a level 1 expert. So to do that, it's just a couple of changes. His hit points increased by 1 hit die for a total of 14 hit points, and then he got the helpful trait, which lets him take the help action as a bonus action. On top of that, he gained proficiency in dexterity saving throws and 5 skill proficiencies. I then added a bonus ability because I wanted him to feel extra special. He's a little goblin cook. That's his stat block right there, and it took no time at all to make. If you don't want to use Tasha's sidekicks, you've got other options. Just use an existing stat block and give it death saves. If you want a fairy dragon called Muffin, that works. You can use a knight. Knights have a leadership ability, or at least they used to, that makes them surprisingly great party followers. Even if they can end up being spotlight hogs, I'd probably kill the multi-attack in those cases. You could run a full custom character sheet. That can be a lot, but it's possible. There's also third-party content with various rules for sidekicks, retainers and strongholds and followers. I've used them, but honestly, the damage level mechanics they use are a bit weird for me, so I prefer using hit points. But that's just my taste. If you're looking for ready-made sidekick archetypes, the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide has you covered. On page 88, there's a subsection called NPCs as party members that outlines 6 classic sidekick roles you can use. The comic relief. Every party needs a jester, whether they're an inept squire, a pun-loving bard, or just a goblin who thinks pants are a conspiracy. The curmudgeon, here to grumble about the party's terrible choices. Think grizzled mentor, grumpy old knight, or bitter cleric who hates adventurers. Just make sure he has their back no matter what, like a battle Eeyore. The dutiful assistant, the backpack carrier, the horse watcher, the NPC who makes sure your wizard didn't leave their spellbook at the last inn. The milquetoast healer. Not everybody brings a healer, and sometimes you need an NPC whose entire personality is, I have cure wounds. The walking textbook. This is your lore dump NPC, a sage, scholar, historian who knows a lot but is absolutely useless in a fight. The wallflower warrior, a meat shield with no opinions. They exist to be another target in the battle and they don't overshadow the party. All that sounds like a good place to start. These aren't hard rules, they're templates. You can mix and match. A curmudgeon who's also a healer. Great. A walking textbook who's also comic relief? Sounds like me. The key is making sure the sidekicks supports the characters but doesn't steal the spotlight. That's your Goldilocks zone. Okay, one last tip. If you want your players to really care about these guys, you need to make the sidekick a part of the story. Like a little. Give them personal quests. Maybe Dominic the hedge mage wants to save his hometown. Maybe Aiden the thief has a family conflict. Use downtime to let sidekicks grow. Maybe the party leaves him behind to handle something important, and when the party returns, there has been a development. Aiden the thief killed the mob boss, and now Aiden is a sidekick no longer, but a crime boss. And eventually, maybe a villain. As you play around, you'll find ways to tie these folks into the plot. If the Sidekick story intersects with the main adventure, they become irreplaceable. Do this and your players will start protecting these NPCs like their own party members. Suddenly they've got this direct connection to the story and the story world. It makes everything feel that much more real. And that's where we'll pick it up next time. Thanks so much for watching this video. This channel is run by me and my girlfriend, and if you want to support this channel directly, consider becoming a channel member or joining our Patreon. Patrons and members get access to our exclusive Discord, and they can talk there about game mechanics and behind-the-scenes stuff about the channel or whatever else. If you're feeling especially generous, you might like the video, comment, share, or subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified when we release new videos. Until next time, keep studying the mystic arts.